Energy drinks and stimulants are incredibly popular today, and it seems like every popular blogger is producing their own. This is a massive niche where enormous sums of money are being made. Naturally, many questions arise about how dangerous and harmful they truly are. Is the idea that they destroy your health and cause addiction a myth? Or is it the truth? In today's episode, I will analyze the main components of modern energy drinks. We will explore the benefits and harms they bring, what you can expect from regular and heavy consumption, and I will offer some advice. How can you restore your body's energy without resorting to energy drinks? Watch until the end, and you'll gain a lot of valuable information and find answers to many of your questions. People have always sought high energy levels. They wanted life to be in full swing, and it might seem that energy drinks are a recent invention. But in reality, if we dig a little deeper, we'll see that's not the case. Consider tea, it's also an energy drink. In fact, tea was the very first energy drink. Can you imagine that? That was a long time ago. Coffee is probably the most popular energy drink. It originated in Ethiopia and is also more than 1,000 years old. Just like many people, I'm drinking coffee right now. In terms of revenue, the global coffee trade is, as far as I know, almost comparable in scale to the illegal drug trade. This means the coffee lobby is incredibly powerful. We are constantly seeing new studies claiming it brings enormous benefits, such as reducing the risk of diabetes, and it is very difficult to understand what is true and what is not, because a gigantic amount of money and lobbying lies behind it. Next, there is Mate, a South American drink with a mild stimulating effect. It is also very popular, and you can now find it in many coffee shops. And last but not least is Guarana. Today, when I say the word Guarana, you might think of the drink they sell at the fitness club. However, in reality, Guarana has been used for a long time by people in South America and Asia who understood that it provides an energy surge. The insidiousness of all these energy surges is actually very simple. I'll state this now, and we will return to this point more than once throughout our discussion. Remember, energy drinks do not give you energy. They mask your fatigue. If you grasp this principle, your entire attitude towards them will likely change. For many years, I have been producing dietary supplements called Ipsum at my own plant in Dubna. I initially designed and created these products for my own family and friends, and they happily use them, experiencing enormous benefits. I am very grateful to you for trusting me, for choosing my products, and thank you for helping and supporting domestic manufacturers. I will leave a link to my marketplace where these dietary supplements are featured below this video. If you're interested, please visit the link, take a look, and stay healthy. Today, energy drinks typically come in glass or metal cans. You drink one and you feel a boost. They are backed by massive advertising campaigns. Just look at the Red Bull racing team, for example. The first such drink was Coca-Cola, created in 1886. It contained caffeine, but the original formula also included an extract from the coca leaf, which is the source of cocaine. That's why the word coca is in the name Coca-Cola. Sounds amusing now, but that was the reality. However, here's an interesting fact. Coca-Cola wasn't actually the first. Dr. Pepper was created a year earlier, in 1885, making it the very first carbonated drink with an invigorating effect. Interestingly, Pepsi-Cola was created as an alternative in 1893. At the time, they weren't called energy drinks, and people didn't fully understand how they worked. They were, however, considered a good way to raise one's level of energy and vitality and to get a real boost. However, the first product that can be considered a true energy drink, not just a tasty beverage, was called Lipovitan D. It appeared in Japan in 1962. It was the first drink truly marketed as an energy drink, and its composition included taurine, caffeine, and B vitamins. So many years have passed, yet if you look at most modern energy drinks, they largely contain the same core ingredients: taurine, caffeine, and B vitamins. The Japanese invented this drink for segments of the population experiencing heavy psycho-emotional stress and a loss of vitality. And of course, when I say energy drink, what's the first brand that comes to mind? That's right, Red Bull. It was launched in 1987 by the Austrian Dietrich Mateschitz. He didn't invent it from scratch. He adapted an existing Thai drink called Krating Daeng, simply taking it as a base and modifying it. As you may know, there's a very interesting story behind Red Bull's launch. Initially, nobody bought it. It was an energy drink in a distinctive can, and no one wanted to drink it because they didn't understand what it was. Then, the company started giving it away for free at parties and near student clubs, and soon, empty cans were seen everywhere. This strategy worked in two ways. First, it generated interest. Second, the company began sponsoring a huge number of sporting events, leading people to associate Red Bull with an active lifestyle. Another interesting marketing tactic was that the price of Red Bull was raised several times, and with each price increase, demand actually grew. The success of Red Bull solidified when its price rose sharply. As the saying goes, the forbidden fruit is sweetest. The company marketed a unique formula of caffeine, taurine, and B vitamins, but in reality, as we mentioned, a drink with nearly the exact same formula had already been invented in Japan years earlier. Red Bull's main distinguishing feature, however, was its huge amount of sugar. So, what does the modern energy drink market look like today? Let's break it down. First, there are the classic energy drinks. We won't mention specific brand names, but they most often contain a combination of caffeine, taurine, and sugar. The second category is sports-focused energy drinks. These are typically aimed at people who want to avoid sugar. They are essentially the same as classic energy drinks, but without sugar. Sometimes, ingredients like adaptogens or creatine are also added. The third category is energy shots. I've been to Japan where these shots are extremely popular. You'll find them in small, concentrated bottles. They aren't designed to quench your thirst, but to provide a quick energy boost. They contain a high concentration of stimulants with a large dose of caffeine, up to 300 or 350 milligrams. That amount, which is practically the entire daily dose, is contained in just one shot. The fourth category is the so-called healthy energy drinks. These contain extracts from natural plants, such as ginseng or turmeric. The marketing implies that because they are natural, they must also be healthy. So, what conclusions can we draw so far? People have indeed always used stimulating beverages, long before they knew whether the ingredients were harmful or beneficial. The first modern one was Dr. Pepper, and today many energy drinks are remarkably similar in their core composition, differing mainly in their taste and aroma. Friends, you often ask me how to make an appointment. Currently, I am only seeing oncology patients, and I do so for free at the Federal Oncology Center. For questions related to anti-aging, prolonging youth, increasing libido, or potency for both men and women, I have another solution. For all these issues, as well as the prevention or treatment of endocrine diseases, you can contact my students whom I have personally trained in my methods. They work online, and I will leave a link to their project below this video. So, if you are interested, trust my approach, and want to improve your health, get a checkup, or be proactive about preventing potential diseases, the link is below this video. Thank you for your trust. So my friends, let's break it down. What's inside these drinks? What's in the composition, what actually works, and what is just a marketing ploy? First, let's talk about the most popular and common ingredient, caffeine. Caffeine is the world's most popular stimulant, and numerous large-scale studies have repeatedly confirmed its stimulating effect on athletes and ordinary, healthy people alike. The effects can include increased strength, concentration, and focus. How much caffeine per day can a healthy person without diseases or contraindications consume? The generally accepted figure is about 400 milligrams. In my opinion, it is better to limit yourself to 200 or 250 milligrams, and preferably consume it only in the first half of the day. A 250 milliliter can of Red Bull contains 80 milligrams of caffeine. 1 cup of espresso contains approximately 80 milligrams. A can of Monster contains 160 milligrams of caffeine. A can of Bang contains 300 milligrams of caffeine. This is like drinking almost 4 cups of coffee in 1 can. Energy shots can also contain up to 300 milligrams, despite their small volume. So what effects does it have? According to scientific facts, caffeine increases concentration and alertness because it blocks adenosine receptors in the brain. When caffeine blocks these adenosine receptors, you no longer feel sleepy. Therefore, caffeine can be genuinely invigorating. It also accelerates reaction speed by reducing inhibition in the body, which in turn suppresses drowsiness. The effect of caffeine on adenosine receptors lasts for quite a long time. You might feel the initial boost from a coffee drink wear off after half an hour or an hour, but its effects can still ruin your sleep and disrupt your circadian rhythm. This is especially true if you drink coffee drinks late in the evening, say at 7, 8, or 9 o'clock. Why? Because it can take up to 8 hours for the caffeine to be fully eliminated from your body. And during that time, it affects your sleep. Even if you do manage to fall asleep, the sleep is not as deep. It's more superficial and, consequently, less restorative. As for the symptoms of a caffeine overdose, most people have likely experienced them at some point. Tremors, dizziness, anxiety, sometimes even a panic attack, tachycardia, which is an increased heart rate, and arrhythmia can occur. In fact, caffeine is also available in ampoules. This means that in certain medical situations, caffeine is treated as a drug. The biggest problem is that very often we don't understand how much caffeine we are actually consuming. This is because it can be a hidden ingredient in some pills or sports nutrition products. Or we might only count our cups of coffee, forgetting that other items like tea also contain caffeine. As a result, we can easily exceed the permissible daily amount. Once again, the recommended daily dose according to the World Health Organization is 350 to 400 milligrams. However, it seems to me that if we are talking about a truly healthy lifestyle, that number should be closer to 250 milligrams. And it's best to get that caffeine from high-quality whole bean coffee, consumed only in the first half of the day. The second most common ingredient is taurine. Many of you might think that taurine is also a stimulant that will increase your energy levels, much like caffeine, but in reality, that is not the case. Its effects are completely different, and on its own, you are unlikely to feel any stimulating effect from taurine. It is believed to play a role in the body's energy balance, but it is not a stimulant in itself. In fact, there is very little research that conclusively proves its effectiveness. Many argue that its inclusion is more of a marketing tactic, as its effect is insignificant. Thirdly, let's talk about what is probably the biggest source of harm: sugar, specifically glucose. Of course, many fitness trainers might say, "So what? It's only 30 or 40 grams of sugar." And yes, for a single, one-time use, this won't cause any significant problems. However, these drinks have a particular quality. They are designed to make you want more, leading to addiction. Many people start their day with one, and sometimes drink 2 or even 3 energy drinks a day. This is especially true when their internet idols tell them it's cool and beneficial, and they are even promised they can win a sports car if they drink enough of them. Each of us has stories related to energy drinks. In my own life, they were mainly present in the form of sports pre-workout supplements. Pre-workouts consist mainly of ingredients like caffeine, taurine, betaine, and citrulline. These aren't drinks for, say, a grandfather with ischemic heart disease. So, in my own life, I haven't had an acute problem with energy drinks. However, I did have one moment when I consumed far too much caffeine. It was after my 6th-year graduation. I had saved up for a trip, and we flew to Ayia Napa, a resort in Cyprus. On the bus to the plane, we met a group of guys who were about 25 years old. They were flying there for only 3 days because they had little vacation time and tried to make the most of it before returning to work. I was there with my friend Artyom, and we got caught up in the same high-energy flow as them. We tried to keep up with them, but it was simply impossible, so we started drinking a lot of energy drinks. I remember we went for days without sleep. I was constantly drinking energy drinks just to stay awake. At one point, I realized that the sounds around me had become muffled. The colors seemed dull, I had no mood, and I didn't want to do anything. It was a truly terrible state. I had truly experienced a caffeine overdose. If you have had any interesting experiences with energy drinks, please share them in the comments below this video. I'd be happy to read them. Now let's get back to sugar. What effect does it have? It provides a quick surge of strength by rapidly increasing glucose levels in the blood. Insulin is released, but then there's a sharp drop after which you experience a loss of strength. So, the drink invigorates you for a short time, but then it gets even worse. Perhaps, if you need a boost for the last 30 or 40 minutes of a drive because you're nodding off, you could justify using one. But you shouldn't drink it just because you like the taste. How much sugar is in the most popular drinks? A can of Red Bull has 27 grams of sugar, That's about 6 teaspoons. Think about that for a second. A can of Monster contains 54 grams of sugar. 54 grams. Can you imagine? There are, of course, sugar-free versions. They will give you less of an immediate boost, but they also result in fewer negative after effects. This means the subsequent energy crash will be less significant. It's not healthy by any means, but it's a better option than a sugary energy drink. An important point, by the way, is that caffeine is more powerful when consumed with glucose. Its effect is enhanced. The decline, known as an energy crash, occurs after about 60 minutes. This pattern increases the risk of obesity and insulin resistance. If you are at risk for diabetes and regularly abuse energy drinks, this will not lead to anything good. And of course, protein glycation occurs, which means you will age faster. A safe daily dose of added sugar is, of course, individual. Some people consume 200 grams per day, but nutritionists say that a safe daily dose of added sugar is about 25 to 30 grams. That's about 1 can or sometimes just half a can of an energy drink. So what about sugar substitutes? Are they safe and harmless? Let's find out. Sugar substitutes are a better choice than sugar in these drinks. The 3 most common ones are: first, aspartame, also known as E951. It's sweet, but there are some questions about its safety. Second, sucralose, or E955, and acesulfame potassium, or E950. They're considered safe, but there's a belief that consuming them can increase cravings for sweet things. And thirdly, there's stevia. This is probably the safest option, but as you may know, it can have a bitter aftertaste, making it not the most delicious choice for everyone. There are indeed advantages. The sugar level in our bloodstream does not increase. However, our brain reacts to the sweet taste in a specific way. The sweet taste can sometimes help people stick to a diet, but it can also complicate things by deceiving the body. Therefore, I am a supporter of allowing some real glucose in your diet, but it must be in measured doses that you can consciously afford. In principle, the harm is determined by the quantity. A can of Coke a day will not radically change your life for the better or for the worse. We often see fortified with vitamins written on energy drink cans. Yes, indeed, they contain vitamins, most often B vitamins such as B3, B6, and B12. Why? Because they are involved in energy metabolism. They help process food into energy faster and also affect our nervous system. Therefore, one of the most obvious signs of a B vitamin deficiency, which is often seen in vegetarians, is fatigue. A person might be tired, inhibited, react slowly, be in a bad mood, and have low energy levels. So if you're a vegetarian, please monitor your B vitamin levels. Remember, these vitamins don't provide energy on their own. They only help if you have a pre-existing deficiency. Taking in excess of them won't provide extra energy. In fact, some of them, like niacin B3, can cause a reaction. For example, vitamin B3 can cause what is known as the niacin flush. This is when the blood vessels dilate and prostaglandins cause a tingling sensation, followed by red, itchy skin. This is the flush effect. It is not dangerous, but not very pleasant. Finally, let's talk about the natural extracts that are sometimes included. What could they be? Could be guarana. Could be ginseng. Guarana and green tea extract do work. However, they are quite expensive and usually very little of them is added to the product. So, let's draw some brief conclusions. First, caffeine is the only truly effective stimulant ingredient. Second, other active components like taurine, B vitamins, and natural extracts are largely a marketing issue. Third, sugar is the main problem as it contributes to their addictive nature. Fourth, the sugar-free versions are a better choice than the sugar-sweetened ones. And how do energy drinks affect the body? Let's figure it out. I call this health on credit. You get energy now, but you pay for it later with interest in the form of your health. You have to understand that energy drinks don't give you energy. They mask your fatigue. Therefore, when you feel tired, perhaps the most reasonable way to fight it is to rest, to open a window, to change your position, to do some squats, or to go for a walk. But we often want to cheer up without doing anything, right where we are. Naturally, this affects the nervous system. For a long time, you don't allow yourself to recover. You stimulate an already tired nervous system. As a result, you get an overload, and you essentially stop feeling the body's signal of fatigue. Fatigue is a signal to your brain that you need to rest. By ignoring it, you are destroying this delicate system, and the body begins to work to the point of exhaustion. Imagine a car engine. Your temperature gauge is rising. Instead of slowing down, you start to press the pedal to the metal. This is not right. It also affects the heart and leads to accelerated aging. Energy drinks can indeed increase heart rate and blood pressure, not by much, but they can. If you have a predisposition to certain diseases, especially if you are overweight, you can provoke the onset of illnesses, particularly type 2 diabetes. So, should you drink energy drinks or not? You always want radical, direct advice from me. This is evil. This is good. Drink this, don't drink that. The truth is, everyone might have a moment in their life when an energy drink can be beneficial, because a single use of anything will make you neither sick nor healthy. Therefore, if you, as I mentioned, are driving somewhere and need to stay awake for the last 30 minutes, an energy drink might help. But if we are talking about regular use, just look at how many energy drinks are out there and how often young people, in particular, use them. The growing brains of teenagers react especially actively to caffeine, and this can lead to disorders. Long-term use of large doses of caffeine and sugar is not beneficial. Therefore, if you force me to choose just one stance, I will say that it would probably be better if energy drinks did not exist. But the forbidden fruit is always sweet. So, if we are talking about rare, non-systemic use, then perhaps energy drinks can be allowed. But they should be energy drinks without artificial colors, preferably without sugar, and the amount should not cause you to exceed the daily intake of caffeine, no more than 400 milligrams, though in my opinion it's better to stick to 250. And when you lack energy, think about why you lack it. Perhaps you have a vitamin deficiency. Perhaps you don't sleep enough or you exercise too much or too little. Perhaps you are experiencing psychological stress. Don't try to find a simple and quick answer in a can of energy drink. Approach your life and your goals wisely, and then everything will be fine.